Welcome to all of you. My name is Stacey DeKalma. I am the Manager for Sector Development here at the Queensland Council of Social Service, or QCOS, as you probably know us. And it's my pleasure to present this webinar this afternoon on Skilling Queenslanders for Work. This is something we have been working with the Department of Employment, Small Business and Training for quite a few years now, delivering webinars and tender writing workshops to support the application process. So this is something we've done fairly regularly with the department, and it's a real pleasure to continue to do so. Before we get started in the actual content of the webinar, I would like to acknowledge the Yagara and Turrbal people. It's on their land that I am on today. I pay my respect to their elders past and present. And I'd also like to acknowledge the Yugambeh speaking nation. It's on their land that I live and raise my family, and acknowledge the Durrumbal people of Central Queensland. It was on their land that I was born and raised. I acknowledge any First Nations people on the line today. And QCOS as an organisation would really like to thank all First Nations people for the gift of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. This is a really important document piece of work, and we as an organisation look forward to supporting the work leading to a successful referendum to enshrine a First Nations voice to Parliament in the Australian Constitution, followed by Makarrata and treaty. And we welcome the invitation to walk alongside First Nations people on this journey. Okay, a really important thing to note at this stage, there are going to be some PowerPoint slides here with a lot of information on them. Now, I'd like to assure you that you will receive a post-event email after this workshop, and that email will have in it the slides, it will have the recording of this session and a few other resources that we have as well. So please don't feel like you need to write down all the things on these slides, because some of them have a lot of information on them. So just feel free to listen. Ask any questions you would like to ask. I'll try and check the chat fairly regularly as we move through the presentation. And we're lucky enough to have quite a few different DESBT team members on the line today. And they'll be able to answer any of your nitty-gritty questions. Some more of your general ones I might be able to answer, but we'll find an answer for you either way. All right, let's get into the content. Okay, so Skilling Queenslanders for Work really is an initiative intending to get real outcomes for Queenslanders, regardless of where they are in the state. Through this initiative, we've seen 74,000 people assisted, 47,000 jobs, and 76% of positive outcomes. And this is really the reason why this initiative has continued to have support through the Queensland Government. It remains a really strong initiative, which continues to gain funding over the years. This is what the participation rates look like. We have 20% Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples represented in the programs, 19% migrants and refugees, 12% with disability, 59% youth, which is considered 15 to 24 years, which feels a bit rude if you're 25, 15% mature age, so 45 years and over, and 48% long-term unemployed. Now, this is an example of a slide with lots on it, and don't worry, we're going to be sending out this PowerPoint and you will receive it. So as at the 31st of January this year, $629 million has been committed statewide under Skilling Queenslanders for Work since 2015 to assist 96,588 disadvantaged Queenslanders, and that's 509 million of actual expenditure. We've seen 15 competitive funding rounds, which have held for community-based training programs, 2,781 community-driven projects worth $564 million to assist 93,077 disadvantaged Queenslanders. There's been $42.4 million allocated across 77 local councils and 2 statutory authorities to create 2,975 additional traineeships and apprenticeships under the First Start. We've seen additional funding, which was made available from 2016 to 2017 for community-based organisations under First Start, and $10.7 million was awarded to 114 not-for-profit community-based organisations under First Start to create 536 new traineeships and apprenticeships. And as of 31st of January this year, 74,075 people have been assisted, with 47,675 gaining a job as a direct result of participation in the initiative. So that's a high-level overview and some context as far as how far-reaching this initiative is. So we're looking at the second round results. So results announced by the Minister for Training and Skills Development on the 17th of December 2022. And some of you may have had experience in delivering some of these projects. And a list of successful or approved projects by program is published on the website at the DESBIT funded projects link. Now, unsuccessful organisations are encouraged to seek feedback via the email address that you can communicate with DESBIT for applications. So that's sqw@desbit.qld.gov.au. And again, we will send this information to you so you receive it. And applications for Ready for Work was significantly undersubscribed. So if that's a program that you're looking at, it's really well worth your investigation because that was quite undersubscribed. Get Set for Work was also undersubscribed in round one. However, there may been a timing issue. They are expecting more applications in round two, and also the impact of the Australian government expanding Transition to Work program. So this gives you an overview of who were funded last time. And I think that list of approved projects is a really useful one to peruse. You get a really good idea of what kinds of projects the department is funding and what they look like and where they are in Queensland. Okay. So Skilling Queenslanders for Work Community Recovery Package was activated to assist with the cleanup and rebuilding program across southeast Queensland and the Fraser Coast region as a result of widespread damage caused by extraordinary rainfall and flooding, which we were just talking about at the beginning. As we were all getting on the line. So projects funded under Work Skills Traineeships, Skilling Queenslanders for Work Community Recovery will offer immediate job opportunities to displaced workers and local job seekers in disaster affected areas to support recovery effort. We know these recovery efforts can go for quite some time. So community-based organisations in flood-affected areas are encouraged to submit flood recovery-related work skill traineeship project proposals. Now, work skill traineeship proposals offering construction or conservation and ecosystem management traineeships which carry out flood recovery-related work such as clearing debris, repairing fencing, restoring community buildings, or recreation areas, revegetation and regeneration of national parks or green spaces, stabilising creek beds and riverbanks, refurbishing parks or sporting grounds and facilities, restoring walkways, bikeways or footpaths should be directed for funding under this package. So that's something you've recognised as having value in your community. This is well worth your consideration. Now, recovery work can also include proposals offering business, hospitality and retail traineeships to support social enterprise cafes and other community activities in flood-affected communities. Now, project works must be located in one of the 21 declared community recovery local government areas across southeast Queensland and the Fraser Coast region. Projects that have already commenced will be commencing the first quarter of 2023. Organisations are contracted for a 12-month duration and all projects must be completed by the 30th of June 2024. Now, Skilling Queenslanders for Work Community Recovery Package will support small businesses to grow by providing a pool of skilled and job-ready Queenslanders to meet the employment needs of local employers and industries as the economy recovers. And approved projects are published on our website. Now, broadly speaking about the Skilling Queenslanders for Work initiative. Now, this is a permanent initiative with $80 million each year to assist up to 15,000 disadvantaged Queenslanders through 8 different programs. And you can see those programs up on the screen now. In the 23 to 24 year, there will be 2 competitive funding rounds held under a transparent, contestable process for the 7 community-based programs with project-based delivery models, which are community work skill traineeships, get set for work, youth skills, ready for work, community foundation skills, and skill up. So that's a total funding of 70.1 million for those 7 programs, representing the total regional budget allocation. Now, just a note here, available funding each round is not just for new projects. It does include second payments for current projects and ongoing long-term contract commitments, of which there are a few. So budgets and notionally allocated across the regions, and applications are scored comparatively and comparatively assessed on a regional basis. Work skill traineeships include 5 qualifications. Those are construction, conservation and ecosystem management, hospitality, retail services, and workplace skills or business. Now, First Start, which is for councils, is allocated by an annual bidding process undertaken by LGAQ in partnership with DESBIT, and that's expected to occur in late August, early September. And First Start Community by direct application to DESBIT and assessed on published criteria. So applications for 2022-23 remain open. And priority is given to areas identified with a high need for job seeker groups. Now, Skilling Queenslanders work is supported by a statewide regional network working closely and forming partnership with community-based organisations and local employers to determine local skills, entry-level industry and labour needs. And Skilling Queenslanders work has a really critical role in increasing workforce participation by improving work opportunities for vulnerable job seekers. It continues to develop holistic projects that include a range of support measures to address barriers to participation and work. And Skilling Queenslanders work is providing opportunities for economic growth across Queensland that is grounded in principles of social inclusion, employment opportunities that meet the aspirations of individuals and their communities, and increasing the accessibility of the labour market for all Queenslanders. It promotes a range of social benefits for individual participants through increased workforce participation that includes improved health and wellbeing, confidence and social inclusion. And Skilling Queenslanders for Work generates connections between participants, employers and community groups that are working with them. Now, since 2015, we've seen more than $206 million invested into by Skilling Queenslanders for Work into community-based organisations operating social enterprises as employment and skills generators, resulting in the creation of over 13,300 jobs. So Community Foundation Skills, or SVS, was introduced in the 21 to 22 year under the revitalised Skilling Queenslanders for Work initiative. It sees up to $5 million in the 23 to 24 year to prepare 1,400 disadvantaged Queenslanders with the foundation skills, knowledge and confidence to participate successfully in a modern knowledge economy. Foundation skills are fundamental skills that support participation in the workplace. So they community and adult education and training. So individuals who may have very low foundation skills are more likely to experience multiple and complex disadvantage, requiring greater support to develop higher level foundation skills. Providing access to affordable foundation skills training is critical to breaking cycles of poverty, joblessness, and intergenerational disadvantage. So Community Foundation Skills will offer a broad set of enabling skills on a continuum from basic to highly proficient that include language, literacy, numeracy, and digital. So that's LLND for short, and employability skills to develop career aspirations and build links with community and employers. Now, Community Foundation Skills will support people with low-level foundation skills seeking to upskill, return to study or enter the workforce. Around 70% of Australians not in the labour force and 60% in the lowest income decile have inadequate literacy and numeracy skills. So this is really critical. Training will be tailored to the individual foundation skills development needs of the learner, so they can be enrolled in full foundational skills qualification, all units of competency or non-accredited foundation skills training. So standalone non-accredited foundation skills training or preparatory courses can be delivered on projects, as it's recognised that non-accredited training, mentoring and support can also be highly effective in developing enabling foundation skills, particularly for people marginalised from the more formal education system. So you may be working with some client groups or service users who you recognise that this would be really helpful for. Stakeholder partnerships will ensure that foundation skills training is contextualised to the employment and community participation needs of your local area. The implementation of a foundation skills program supports the proposed National Foundation Skills Strategy, which was implemented in 2022. And this standalone foundation skills program under Skilling Queenslanders work will be a significant acknowledgement from the Palaszczuk government that Queensland is investing community-based foundation skills training to support learners to build these essential skills. Now, success will be measured by pre and post foundation skills training capability for participants benchmarked against the Australian Core Skills Framework, or ACSF, and the Core Skills for Work, CSFW, development framework. The ACSF provides a consistent national approach to evaluating and building the 5 core skills of learning, reading, writing, oral communication, and numeracy. Now, employment and further training outcomes will also form part of the standard key performance indicators for community foundation skills, consistent with the current monthly reporting by providers against all Skilling Queenslanders for Work programs. And there is an expectation here that providers will design services to provide a continuum of support to participants across all learning and work pathways so they can achieve their learning goals and transition to work or further education. So the Community Foundation Skills delivers standalone foundation skills training, so accredited and or non-accredited. Other vocational qualifications cannot be delivered, so that's an ineligible model. DESBIT supports the use of Australian Core Skills Framework and the Core Skills for Work developmental framework to benchmark a participant's current foundation skills capabilities and the use of foundation skills training package to develop skills. And as of the 31st of January 2023, 53.2% of exited participants statewide have gained a positive outcome. And when we're talking about Skilling Queenslanders for Work, a positive outcome generally means employment or going on to further educational training. So let's have a look at Skill Up. Just checking that we don't have any questions so far. Okay, great. All right, so Skill Up was introduced in, again, another one introduced in the 21 to 22 year under the Revitalised Skilling Queenslanders for Work initiative. And it sees up to 4 million in the 23-24 year to assist 1,200 adults 25 years and older, especially mature age, which is 45 years and over, and recently retrenched or displaced workers. So young job seekers aged 15 to 24 years can be recruited onto projects. However, a business case or justification needs to be made for their participation. Skill Up provides tailored assistance and industry-focused training up to Certificate 3 level to adult job seekers to help them get started on new career paths. All participants must be enrolled in a nationally recognised training. Now, this program will have an integrated service delivery model delivered in a community-based setting like the existing Skilling Queenslanders for Work programs. Not-for-profit organisations, including peak industry bodies, that can demonstrate strong links with or representation from government, industry and community sectors will be eligible to apply for funding. Delivery will be industry-focused training aimed to address critical labour and skill shortages and will equip disadvantaged individuals with the skills required in a changing labour market. A training and support plan to be developed for each participant and, where appropriate, individually tailored for the acquisition of foundation skills embedded in the learning support. Now, this program will target high priority industries with entry-level skills shortages. Lack of skills are a significant barrier to employment, and people who are marginalised from learning are unlikely to engage in training on their own. And Skill Up will target job seekers who benefit from an informal and supportive learning environment that is often best offered by community-based organisations. As at the 31st of January 2023, 63.8% of exited participants statewide have gained employment, which is great. Okay, moving on to the next initiative, which is community work skills. So up to $10 million in the 23-24 year will provide supported training to 3,300 disadvantaged Queenslanders in a project-based delivery model. Tailored support, including a mix of career advice, job preparation skills, nationally recognised training up to Certificate 3, foundation skills and individual case management. Training and assessment services are funded under Cert 3 guarantee. Now, all participants must be enrolled in nationally recognised training. That's a bit of a theme across these. That's something to take note of. Lower level qualifications and foundation skills are recognised as an appropriate pathway. Standalone foundation skills projects can be delivered with pathway to vocational skills articulated. Now, as at 31st of January 2023, 66.3% of exited community work skills participants statewide have gained a positive outcome. So they're either in employment, they've gone on to do further training, or a combination of both of those things. Now, the latest external survey results indicated 78.3% of community work skills participants with a positive outcome that still are maintaining a positive outcome 12 months after exiting. And I think that really is testament to the value of the wraparound support that community-based organisations are able to provide participants as they gain their qualification and their learning. Delivery of foundation skills is strongly supported by DESBT, either standalone or integrated into vocational qualification. If integrated, foundation skills should only be delivered to those participants that have been individually assessed as requiring the support. So a really key thing to note in these projects is the how tailored programs and projects are for the participants who are taking part in the program. So this is not a broad one-size-fits-all approach, but participants are really receiving the wraparound support that's required for their particular situation. If standalone, the pathway to a vocational qualification should be articulated with the inclusion of relevant elective units of competency. All right, now here's a story, a case note, a case story for you. Now, these good news stories, and there's a few of them throughout this webinar, they're developed from the monthly reports and photos of projects submitted by Skilling Queenslanders for providers. So if you've delivered a Skilling Queenslanders for Work project before, you will know that there are monthly reporting requirements, and something for you to know if you're going to be applying for this funding going forward. And this is a story that's been developed from that reporting. So the Pharmacy Guild of Australia was awarded $33,500 under the Community Work Skills Program to assist disadvantaged job seekers in Rockhampton and surrounding areas to gain skills and experience for employment in community pharmacy. This project ended in April 2022. Now, individual support included the development of a training and support plan, language, literacy, numeracy assistance, employability skills, life skills, case management, mentoring, and post-participation support focusing on transition to employment and job retention. Now, wraparound support included networking opportunities, specialist services referrals, industry guest speakers, career planning, inclusion in the Guild's job seeker database, job preparation, so that included writing applications and interview techniques, and job search. And upon project completion, 8 were assisted, 8 completed, and 100% of their participants gained ongoing employment, which is fantastic. Here on the screen, you see Yakona, a 27-year-old Indigenous woman, single mum to 3 young children, who had previously worked as a casual cleaner. All right, work skills traineeships. Up to 37.35 million in 23 to 24 year will provide 1,860 traineeships or jobs. So this is a unique entry-level traineeship combining elements of a government-funded works project with the benefits of a traineeship model. So again, we're really providing all participants with the wraparound support that they need to succeed. Traineeships are in one of 5 qualification streams, and they are business, so workplace skills, construction, conservation, ecosystem management, retail services, and hospitality. So in training, the trainees are employed full-time and approval needs to be obtained for any part-time work. There are some circumstances where part-time work may be more appropriate for a participant, and you can make a case for that. Generally speaking, though, this is usually trainees are employed full-time. Now, the trainees are employed on public works, community, social enterprise, or environmental projects that are of benefit to the broader community. Trainees undertake Certificate 1 qualification that integrates vocational skills with on-the-job accredited training, and work skills trainees are fully exempt from student contribution fees. It's really important to note for your budgeting. Now, work skills traineeships projects should be delivered on a full-time basis. So participants are working for 5 days a week. DESBA approval needs to be obtained for part-time traineeships. Again, there are some participants for whom that is going to be better suited, and you can make a case for that. Generally, that's for people who are living with disability or sometimes parents returning to the workforce. Funding under work skills traineeships is primarily for participants and trainee wages, which should generally make up about 70% of your total project budget. In-kind support or complementary funding from other sources is usually required for a project to be undertaken or to deliver a more cost-effective project. Where works are to be undertaken on council-owned land, there is an expectation that council will contribute materials, equipment or labour to demonstrate support for the project. So for work skills traineeships, as I said, there's 5 qualification streams, budgets on the brain: business, construction, conservation, ecosystem management, hospitality, and retail services. And really you're building the skills and confidence of long-term unemployed or disadvantaged job seekers to ensure transition to open employment. And when we're expecting people to be turning up every 5 days a week to participate in their traineeship, really combining practical hands-on training and work experience and building that habit of turning up to work every day in a group of peers who are also undertaking similar work. So 66% of exited work skills traineeships have gained jobs previously, and the last external survey indicates that 72.6 are still in employment or have gone on to do further training 12 months after exiting. I think that's a really worthwhile thing about the Skilling Queenslanders for Work initiative is the long-term outcome that the department has their eye on, that really the long-term aim of this project is to maintain longevity in the workforce, and these participants gain the skills and support required, not just to enter the workforce, but that they stay there and they've had the support they need to have a successful transition into long-term employment. So work skills traineeships, the underlying objective under work skills traineeships is not only to have a visible and long-term impact on physical community infrastructure, but that those opportunities are going to those within a community who need it the most. So the work skills trainees need to be getting into the pattern of going to work every day. And the priority is long-term unemployed job seekers. Youth participation rate for work skills traineeships is considered too high. It's currently 62%. And this is not an exclusively youth program. So under the former Skilling Queenslanders for Work initiative, youth participation under work skills traineeships was around 36%. So there's been a significant jump there in youth participation in this program. So mature age participation rate for work skills traineeship is considered too low. It's currently 9.1%. And previously it was sitting more around 49%. Prime working age, which is 25 to 44, participation rate for work skills traineeships is fairly steady. It's currently 29%, but it could be increased. There's a high number of long-term unemployed job seekers in this age group of 25 to 44. This is an employment-based model, so training is conducted on the job 5 days a week, and really, again, we're getting into that pattern of turning up 5 days a week to participate. DESBA is paying the wages of the trainees through SKU funding, and as a result needs to impose additional requirements and expectations to ensure that the government outcomes are achieved, so that the job seeker gets paid work opportunity, adapts to the rhythms of full-time work, gains confidence by working, gains skills through on-the-job and some off-the-job training, is exposed to employees in the community, and transitions to mainstream work. So previously, the previous experience highlights that jobs secured by participants and trainees are often not in the field of study, but their success, their long-term employment relates to the overall experience of the project, not necessarily the content that they were looking at. The requirement of the registered training organisation to deliver large amounts of training in a classroom and off the job will be minimal, and in many cases will be limited to the assessment of the competencies that the participants have acquired on the job. So DESBA is funding full-time wages to work on projects of community benefit, and DESBA is funding the wages of supervisor or supervisors to work with participants on a full-time basis with a focus on skills and confidence being developed on the job. So work skills traineeships also reflect one of the range of training strategies already available under user choice, that is employment-based delivery mode, and provides a direction to RTOs seeking to provide services to a Skilling Queenslanders for Work project. So the intent is not for the Skilling Queenslanders for Work to fund the wages of full-time students, as full-time training options are already available under the Certificate 3 guarantee in these qualifications. As defined in AVITMIS 30, employment-based delivery mode includes training activities conducted in the workplace, whether it's conducted by the training organisation or the employer, for example, industrial or work experience, field placement, or fully on-the-job training. So the term of the traineeship will be dependent on the length of the project. So nominal duration for a traineeship is 6 months, and the time an individual takes to achieve a competency. Now, this is a really important point. The length of the project must be between 18 and 26 weeks, with the length determined by the work activities to be undertaken and alignment to the training plan. There must be sufficient time to complete the proposed works on the community, public works or environmental project, and also the competencies of the Certificate 1 qualification. So projects proposed for delivery of less than 18 weeks are not supported. The funded Skilling Queenslanders for Work organisation is the employer and receives funding to primarily meet the trainee wage costs. And again, I think we said it was about 70% of your budget should be those trainee wage costs. Any unspent or unexpended trainee wages are returned to the department. Participants sign a training contract with their employer, the community-based organisation, and are registered as trainees. Trainees cannot be put in dangerous work environments or situations. So, for example, trainees should not be undertaking work of any kind without adequate supervision, or undertaking work that may be hazardous to their health or that of the community, such as the removal of asbestos from old buildings. Now, as at 31st of January 2023, 65.8% of exited work skills trainees statewide have gained ongoing employment. So here we have another one of these stories about a successful model. So Skills Centred Queensland was awarded $364,700 to employ 16 disadvantaged job seekers as work skills trainees for 21 weeks. So trainees completed their Cert 1 in business on the job and undertook administrative tasks at the Maryborough Hub, supporting Fraser Coast community-based organisations with local activities and events affected by COVID-19 restrictions. So work activities included the use of business equipment and developing promotional material, archiving, customer service, compiling information packs, data entry, sourcing resources, using social media, updating websites and establishing an online bookstore. So tailored support included soft skills, so problem solving, managing priorities, teamwork, negotiating, specialist service referrals, transport assistance, financial literacy, job prep, and post-participation support. And this project ended in April 2022. 16 trainees were employed, 100% completed, and 94% gained ongoing employment. Here's another one. So Townsville City Council was awarded $522,100 to employ 20 disadvantaged job seekers to undertake the Cert 1 in conservation and land management. So seven participants did the Certificate 1 in conservation and land management, 7 did Certificate 1 in construction, and 6 did a Certificate 1 in business at council facilities and workplaces. So 7 trainees completed the Certificate 1 in conservation and land management on the job and revegetated and regenerated nature reserves. Work activities included basic landscaping, weed management and irrigation systems management. Tailored support included the development of a training and support plan, case management, career counselling and workshops, life skills acquisition, and council-specific training courses such as workplace health and safety, first aid, mentoring and post-project support as required. This project ended in late 2021. 20 trainees were employed, 100% completed and 90% gained ongoing employment. All trainees obtained employment upon project completion. Sorry, all certificate in, I think it was business, obtained employment upon project completion. Multicultural Australia was awarded $620,300 to employ 26 trainees in the second and final year of a two-year long-term contract. So individual support included language literacy and numeracy assistance, life skills, goal setting, money management, team building and communication, specialist service referrals and job preparation. So Multicultural Australia developed a positive relationship with local businesses, with local business Smooth Juice Cafe. And this led to 3 trainees being offered 2 full-time cooking apprenticeships and a hospitality traineeship, with potential for future participants to secure employment at their new location. Jessie Lawton, one of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander trainees, not only secured a cooking apprenticeship at Smooth Juice Cafe, but also won the Best Apprentice of the Year award at the 2021 Capricorn Enterprise Best in Business Awards, which is really exciting. The project ended in March 2022, and it saw 26 trainees employed on the project, 25 completed, and 18 or 69% gaining ongoing employment. Twin Rivers Community Care was awarded $586,200 to employ 32 trainees in either Certificate 1 in retail, business or hospitality. Individual support included language literacy and numeracy assistance, skills development, life skills workshops, job preparation, job search and post-participation support. Now, wraparound support included learner driver assistance, specialist service referrals, counselling services, financial hardship funding. And this project ended in July 2022. Now, 35 trainees were employed on the project, 27 completed one of the qualifications, and 30 or 86% gained ongoing employment. Now, Centre Care Far North Queensland was awarded $865,000 to employ 30 culturally and linguistically diverse background people, mainly migrants, refugees and New Zealand citizens with a Pacific Islander background who are unable to access other employment support. So wraparound support for these participants focused on assistance tailored to the individual needs and included bicultural workers providing language and cultural support, language literacy, numeracy assistance, job readiness skills, specialist services referrals, networking, job preparation and post-project support to transition into and retain employment. And this project ended in August 2021. With 30 trainees employed on the project, 100% completed and 24 or 80% gaining ongoing employment. Of the 30 trainees assisted, 27 were from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds and 3 were Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. So this program is Get Set for Work. On to the next one. Okay, so up to $7.75 million will be awarded in the 23 to 24 year to assist 2,000 disengaged youth 15 to 19 years of age. So this funds locally based community organisations to deliver intensive training assistance over 12 months in a project-based delivery model. The aim is to create a transition pathway by finding them a job, continuing with education or training, or returning to school. So employment outcomes are considered to be the primary objectives. All participants must be enrolled in nationally recognised training, and the training and delivery and assessment services are funded under Cert 3 guarantee. Now, this provides integrated learner support funded under the program. And practical learning activities can include adventure-based learning, team building exercises, work experience or volunteering, employer visits, motivational speakers, or learner driver training. The latest external survey results indicate that 69% of exited participants have gained a positive outcome. So that's either they're in jobs, they've gone on to do further training, or they've returned to school 12 months after the exiting. The primary focus for this one is on early school leavers who are no longer enrolled in school. Young people at risk of disengaging from school can participate, but other learning options and school-based pathways should be explored prior to their participation in Get Set for Work. This program, and look, this is a really important point, this program isn't to be used by schools as a punitive action or as a behaviour management strategy. The primary objective for young people or children who are of school age is for them to be at school. The KPI for this program is a 55% positive outcome. So a combination of employment, entering further education and or training or returning to school. All right, so the Downs Industry Schools Co-op, the acronym for them is DISCO, which is very fun, was awarded $278,100 to assist 70 disadvantaged youth in Toowoomba, Gatton and Dalby, first year of a 3-year long-term contract. 2 qualifications were offered, Certificate 1 in Skills for Vocational Pathways or Certificate 2 in Skills for Work and Vocational Pathways. So participants undertook training to build their entry-level skills in general education and training or hospitality. And tailored support included work experience, employability skills, life skills. So this included things like developing self-esteem and confidence and resilience, soft skills, so communication, coping strategies, anger and time management, goal setting, personal development, computer skills, job preparation, so application and resume development and interview techniques, job search and post participation support. So wraparound support included industry tours, personal presentation, project work. So they did some woodwork, metalwork, retail, horticulture and landscaping, budgeting and banking, ID assistance, so getting a tax file number, getting a Medicare card, healthcare card, etc. This project ended in December 2022, so just recently. Now, in this project, we had 70 participating. 100% of those participants completed one of the qualifications. 51 or 73% gained a positive outcome, that being a combination of employment, entering further education and training, or returning to school. And if you can reset a young person's, thoughts and feelings about the school system and they feel happy to give that pathway a go again, that's great. Your town was awarded $144,000 to assist 36 youth aged 15 to 19 years. Now, 2 qualifications were offered, Certificate 2 in Business and Certificate 2 in Tourism. This project was designed to give participants confidence, motivation and skills to transition into work or further education. And the individual support given to these participants was language literacy and numeracy assistance, life skills, so they looked at personal budgeting, employability skills, soft skills, so communication and building confidence, flexible delivery, optional work experience, case management, mentoring, networking, career pathways, job readiness, job search, and up to 6 months post-participation support for participants to gain or retain employment. And that's a really important thing for some of these participants, is to maintain that supportive relationship with the community-based organisations who have set them up in their employment. So wraparound support included access to 24/7 virtual support, provision of meals, interview clothes, learner driver assistance, transport assistance, so either getting a go card or fuel vouchers or having pick up and drop off points, industry visits, guest speakers, specialist service referrals, development of a personal dossier, so obtaining photo ID, setting up a bank account, navigating government agencies, and personal development workshops. So they looked at alcohol and other drugs, sexual health education, re-navigating anger and guilty emotions. They even looked at things like martial arts to reduce bullying and enhancing self-control. So you can see the breadth of the wraparound support offered to participants through these programs. And that's a really exciting thing about Skilling Queenslanders for Work is there's so much a community-based organisation is able to do, and with the knowledge that you have of your service users and your clients, you're best placed to develop a really robust and useful wraparound program for participants moving through these programs. This project ended in September 2021 and 36 participated, 22 completed one of the qualifications, and 28 of those participants, or 78%, gained a positive outcome, that being a combination of employment or further education and training. Okay, so the program Get Ready for Work. Up to $4 million will be awarded in the 23-24 period to get 5,000 people ready for work. There's a restriction of 15 to 24 years. The restriction of 15 to 24 years has been changed to 15 years and above, with no upper age limit from 21. And that restriction was removed in 2021 and remains with no upper age limit. The program has been expanded to also specifically target recently retrenched or displaced workers as a result of COVID-19, and older job seekers and skilled migrants who may benefit from less accredited training and more specific skills or employment activities. So this funds community-based community organisations and school PNCs and PENFs to deliver basic job preparation and employability skills courses over 6 to 8 weeks in evenings or on weekends to those unemployed 15 years and above to get them ready for work. So job search support or activities only is what suits this particular program. Nationally recognised training is not available or funded under this program. So referral to other programs is permitted based on individuals' specific needs. So you might work with a participant and then refer them on to other Skilling Queenslanders for Work programs. Participants from other Skilling Queenslanders for Work training programs cannot be referred to get ready for work because job assistance has already been funded and provided through those programs. So all the projects all the examples of the projects we've already referred to, they all included some kind of job preparation and support included in them. So you shouldn't be seeing participants from other Skilling Queenslanders for Work training programs coming through your Ready for Work project, because everything that the kind of support you're providing through this particular program has already been provided to them in their other Skilling Queenslanders for Work programs. So school students may participate in Ready for Work, but only where it can be demonstrated that the student meets all of the following criteria. So they're at risk of disengaging from school. They have minimal barriers to achieving employment, so they only need a little bit of support to successfully transition to work, and they don't have access to other forms of job search assistance. Now, the latest external survey results indicate that 74% of exited participants have gained a positive outcome, either in jobs, further education training, or a combination of both of those things 12 months after exiting. All right, so let's look at the Youth Skills Program. Up to $2 million will be allocated in the 23-24 year to assist 400 young people aged 15 to 24 years who are engaged with youth justice or Queensland Corrective Services or Queensland Police Service with nationally recognised training and supported into employment. This has been increased from $1 million to assist 200 participants to now $2 million to assist 400 participants in response to the increased demand for funding to assist young offenders. And I know this is something a lot of us are seeing at the moment, and a lot of conversation currently happening around how we can support those who are offending, who are young people. Now, this funds locally based community organisations with relevant capacity and experience to work with these young people. It encourages a creative and dynamic approach to intervention, so barriers are identified to the barriers identified and provides a supported pathway. All participants must be enrolled in training, which is funded under Cert 3 Guarantee, and it's an integrated learner support funded program. Practical learning activities include adventure-based learning, team building exercises, work experience or volunteering, employer visits, motivational speakers, and learner driver training. And outcomes will vary according to the individual learning pathway and goals. Participants must be engaged with youth justice or Queensland Corrective Services or Queensland Police Service. They need to be aged 15 to 24 years and no longer at school. And these young people may be at risk of offending. DESVIT consults with Youth Justice and Queensland Corrective Services during the assessment process for their comments and advice on relevant local information regarding applicant organisations, so past experience with client base and performance outcomes, and proposed training and delivery strategies. So this is a program with a few different people and agencies giving their perspectives and their advice. Okay, so First Start. This is wage subsidy for local councils, $15,000 for a traineeship. And this year DESBET introduced $30,000 for apprenticeships with priority given to regional and remote Queensland locations. So community-based organisations can gain $20,000 for traineeships. And funding under First Start for councils is via a bidding process, which is managed by Local Government Association of Queensland, or LGAQ. So this bidding process involves councils requesting the number of traineeship positions required for the following financial year, and the bids are then assessed by LGAQ and endorsed by DESBET. So community-based organisations can request application forms via the SKU apps email address and submit applications directly to DESBET. Now, applications are assessed on a number of different criteria, including experience managing government funding, ability to employ, train and supervise trainees, ability to retain post-traineeship, location suitability, and experience with disadvantaged job seekers. So who can apply? Skills Assure suppliers, or an SAS, are registered training organisations pre-approved by DESBET to deliver training and assessment services. So SAS were formerly known as pre-qualified suppliers, or PQS. Some of you may be more familiar with that term. So they were previously known as pre-qualified suppliers. Now they are known as Skills Assure suppliers. School parents and citizens, or parents and friends associations, are eligible to apply for funding under the Ready for Work program. Workforce Australia providers are eligible to apply for funding if they are a not-for-profit organisation. However, they must address the duplication issue in their application and demonstrate what recruitment strategies will be used to ensure they are meeting the Skilling Queenslanders for Work eligibility criteria and actively recruiting people who are ineligible for Workforce Australia services. Eligible not-for-profit community-based organisations can apply for First Start. So if you're on the line and you're a community-based organisation, this gives a summary of your roles and expectations. So wraparound support is tailored assistance based on identified needs. It may include assistance with living skills, counselling, confidence building, job preparation skills and work experience, foundation skills, digital literacy, and career pathway decisions. And referral to external specialist support agencies may be applicable. And we know that this is what community-based organisations are really good at. You're really well networked with other agencies and other organisations, so you're well positioned to be referring your participants to the support that they need that might be outside the realm of what you deliver. So community-based organisations are responsible for designing and leading the project and providing ongoing engagement with participants and working in partnership with the RTO who delivers the training. So we're remembering that the participants in these programs are often the kinds of individuals who may have found schooling or education system difficult to navigate. And so the emphasis really is on that wraparound support that community-based organisations are able to provide. So that's really why community-based organisations are charged with designing and leading the project, because they're gonna add that magic component that's really going to see these participants succeed. So the community-based organisations are funded to provide wraparound individual support and services in their community-based environment. Community-based organisation support is delivered separately and in addition to the training component. So we have a couple of different elements in the project. One is that qualification or education piece, and one is that wraparound support that the community-based organisation is able to provide. Now, community-based organisations are expected to provide tailored individual assistance, including personal support that addresses work-related and non-work-related issues. So while your participant group may have some really common barriers, and some of them there may be parts of the wraparound support that you do provide to all of them, it's really important that the support provided is tailored towards the individual and what they're really needing to succeed. Community-based organisations are expected to assist the RTO, the Registered Training Organisation, with the development of an individual training and support plan. And community-based organisations are responsible for recruitment of the participants. And that's a really important factor in the planning of your project. Where are you getting participants from? How many realistically would you be able to attract to the program? And how many realistically do you have the capacity to support in that really robust way? Any post-participation support offered is provided in kind by the community-based organisation. That's a really important note, important for your budgeting and for thinking about your organisational capacity. Is you will have noticed that through many of the stories that I shared about successful projects, I think most of them mentioned that participants benefited from post-participation support by the community-based organisation. And that really does support that longevity in the further training or workforce opportunity that they've been able to gain. Really important to note that post-participation support is provided in kind by your organisation. That's not something you're able to build into the budget when you're applying for funding. For many organisations, their participants are the clients or service users that they would generally be engaging with anyway, and so that's often how that works. So assistance may include the above detailed broad components, and assistance should be individualised and based on identified and emerging needs. This does not preclude group and team building activities, however, so that can still be included in what you're budgeting for. Projects that you use a broad brush, so everyone's doing the same thing, have the potential to disengage participants and jeopardise positive outcomes and your project KPIs. So be really important that you're not asking participants to engage in activities that aren't relevant to them and don't have value to them. Assistance may include the above detailed, may include some of these components. Here we have life skills, counselling services, driver license assistance. That can be a really important one for some participants, is just having someone assist them with that process and getting them started. I was going to say getting them on the road. That's a good way of saying that. And support costs such as subsidised travel, meal programs, or personal grooming and interview outfits. So I've heard of some great projects that include taking participants to different services or shops that offer that job preparation interview outfit work, and they're able to, have a chat about what kinds of things they might wear to their interview and actually get an outfit to wear to their potential interviews. And then you're able to do a bit of role playing with the preparation for an interview and ask each other questions and support that process. So the RTO is another really important partner in this process. The training delivery must be reported in accordance with the Australian Vocational Education and Training Management Information Statistical Standard. The acronym for that is AVITMIS. It's a long one. I'll repeat it. The Australian Vocational Education and Training Management Information Statistical Standard. So the Australian Qualifications Framework is the national policy for qualifications in the Australian education and training system. And this framework provides a guide to the volume of learning. It describes how long a learner who does not hold any of the competencies identified in the relevant units of competency or modules would take to develop all the required skills and knowledge. The volume of learning includes all teaching and learning activities, such as guided learning, which is classes, lectures, tutorials, and self-paced study, individual study, research and learning activities in the workplace, and assessment activities. So the amount of training provided by RTOs is part of the overall volume of learning and relates primarily to formal activities, including classes and other activities, as well as workplace learning. Organisations that usually submit multiple applications for the same program and region are encouraged to consider combining these applications into one. So capping applications is a direct strategy to ensure new or smaller niche organisations continue to be considered for funding. These rounds have continued to become more and more competitive, and I know that it's a real intent for the Department of Employment, Small Business and Training to ensure the place-based nature of these projects, that they really reflect the needs of the community in which they're being delivered. And so capping applications does assist to keep them quite community-centred. Okay, so we're delivering quality training. And what does quality training look like? Firstly, the qualifications should be subsidised qualifications on the priority skills list, and selected RTOs must be skills assure supplier with DESBIT. So RTOs must have the selected qualifications on their scope of registration, and the training must be linked to local employment opportunities and evidenced by current letters of support. So we're in a really different place than we were a few years ago as far as workforce goes, and it's critical. It was always been a really important part of the application process, but it's really critical that you can evidence that there are jobs in the qualification that you are seeking to deliver in your local community. So choose a skills assured supplier with flexible and blended delivery models and assessment methods, extended periods for learning, and not restricted by minimum class size. That's something that some organisations have had. It's been a challenge when they've partnered with an RTO, and then when rubber hits the road and we're actually into delivery period, that RTO might have a minimum class size, and if you're not able to meet that, then things fall over a little. The department monitoring organisations delivering multiple projects, all with the dual role of community-based organisation and RTO. So that's something that we'll be keeping a close eye on, is organisations delivering both aspects of the project. Skilling Queenslanders for Work advisory committees are able to consider full fee-for-service funding or qualifications or skill sets that fall outside of the priority skills list, but you've just got to have evidence of strong industry or employer support. They're really open to hearing different ideas that are outside of the list of priorities that they've given, but it just requires making a good case. Organisations need to nominate which skill assure supplier they are using to deliver the training and assessment services in their application for funding. So this is not a case of submitting an application and thinking about who you're going to work with afterwards. That partnership work must be underway already happening when you're submitting your application. Now, remember, nationally recognised training is just one component or aspect of Skilling Queenslanders for Work projects. There's all that wraparound support that is critical to its success. And the department is monitoring organisations awarded multiple projects. It's another important thing to note. If you're an organisation seeking multiple funding for multiple projects, they will be monitoring your projects closely. And that includes monitoring community-based organisations who are providing support and delivering training, but also nominated as an RTO on other projects. So there's a few complex projects out there with community-based organisations, RTOs performing multiple roles. So it's just important to note that those projects will be closely monitored. Now, good practice principles for learners. This includes supported learner pathways and transitions built into learning experiences, strong partnerships that exist to support learner needs and their successful transition to further learning and or work. Training has been integrated with work experience and aligned to an area of labour market demand to support sustainable employment outcomes. I think we've all had the experience, well, most of us will have had the experience of trying to absorb new content and learning without having a practical way of actually applying that learning, and it gets lost pretty quickly if you don't have a way to practically apply that learning. So really, training integrated with practical work experience is really the way to go to ensure that learning sticks. Embedded support for foundation skills within the vocational training, and the voice of the learner. So knowing the learner, their community, their culture, and having some flexibility in the way that you're delivering learning. So how do we maximise completion through these programs? In some of the stories that I shared, there were some really high completion rates, and that's no accident. That doesn't just happen. There's some really intentional ways that the community-based organisations delivering these projects ensure that they have a really successful program. So firstly, individual training and support plans are mandatory, and these include strategies to encourage participation and completion. Identifying support directly or through a third party for individual learners that they might need prior to their enrolment or commencement of training. So there might be some things that need to be done before they even start learning. providing access to support throughout the training. So language literacy, numeracy support, assistive technology, additional tutorials, and other mechanisms like assistance in using technology for online delivery components. Adjustments in the assessment process. This is really important. Often disadvantaged cohorts lack the confidence and skills to get into formal training. So the idea here is we're not delivering in a way that these learners have already experienced previously in other educational settings. This is trying something new that's really going to help them overcome the barriers they have previously encountered in a classroom setting. So the Australian Skills Quality Authority is the national regulator of VET qualifications, and that maximise the chance of disadvantaged learners successfully completing training through standards for RTOs. So access to support throughout the training, which is individualised and targeted as reflected in training and support plans, and adjustments to support to accommodate emerging and changing needs. So again, that goes back to the flexibility again. And I know most community-based organisations are really good at being flexible. You often have to be, because the needs of your clients and service users often will change without much warning. So I know that's something that you're really, really good at. But working with your RTO, so finding adjustments in the assessment process to accommodate the learner. So can they do their presentation can they present orally rather than having a written assessment? How might that look, for example? Now I'm going to touch on, I'm just checking the chat, making sure there's no questions. I am going to touch on the Human Rights Act 2019. Now I hope that most of you have heard of the Human Rights Act. You might be really well versed on it by now, and I might not be telling you anything new, but it's really important to note organisations who are utilising government funding are subject to the obligations under the Human Rights Act. So on the 1st of January 2020, Queensland's historical Human Rights Act 2019 came into effect, and the Act is an acknowledgement of the dignity and worth of all people, recognising that equal human rights of everyone is part of a democratic and inclusive Queensland, and we all have a responsibility to respect, protect and promote human rights. So organisations providing services to the public on behalf of the government are considered functional public entities under the Act, and therefore are encouraged to consider the implications of the Act when making decisions and reviewing policies and procedures. So to understand more about the Act and to assist in meeting human rights obligations, the Queensland Human Rights Commission have a whole heap of helpful resources. Now, this is timely because tomorrow, not tomorrow, sorry, in a couple of days' time, we do actually have a webinar. QCOS is delivering a webinar on the obligations of functional entities. So really, if you do have questions about the Human Rights Act and what your community-based organisation obligations and responsibilities might be, you can come along to that. I'll get Maria to pop the link in the chat, but it's really timely. If you are not totally clear on what your obligations are under the Human Rights Act, we really encourage you to come along and find out some more. And we have plenty of resources on Community Door to assist you with embedding the Human Rights Act in your policies and procedures. Okay, now top tips for applications. As I mentioned, this is a competitive funding round. The budget is now embedded within the web-based application form. It has been for a little while now. If you applied a few years ago, there was a separate budget tool that you used. It's now just embedded in the web-based application form. So budgets must include a breakdown of expenses or costs. So for example, do not state $20,000 admin costs with no breakdown of items or expenses that make up that $20,000. A number of applicant organisations are still forgetting to include the student contribution fees, which are mandatory for all programs except for work skills traineeships or ready for work. Nationally recognised training is not funded for ready for work, or community-based foundation skills, so standalone non-accredited foundation skills training can be delivered. The price per participant for the student contribution fee should match the price that is published on the Skills Assure supplier website for the Certificate 3 guarantee or user choice. If the skills assured supplier is charging additional support costs, then these should be included in other costs with some notes about why. Supporting notes should be detailed and total costs outlined, and they should equal the total funds sought for each relevant budget line item. So making sure that that total does actually add up in the end. The Skilling Queenslanders for Work Guide to Applying for Funding, which is located on the SKU website, has top tips on the do's and don'ts when it comes to budget proposals. But a really key one here is to be detailed with your breakdown in the budget. That's useful for the people reviewing your budget and your application, but it's also really useful for you as an organisation. If you do have staff turnover, much more useful for a new person coming in and taking over the project to understand what $20,000 in admin, for example, was actually for. Much more useful for them to have a breakdown of those costs. So here's some more tips. Some skills assured suppliers or RTOs have been withdrawing from projects as they require minimum class numbers. I know I've already mentioned it. It is a really important conversation to have with your RTO about their flexibility and minimum class numbers. So community-based organisations need to shop around for an RTO that best suits their needs. Sometimes RTOs approach community-based organisations. We would really strongly recommend you have conversations and ensure that the RTO you're partnering with is really best suited for your partnership and for the participants you're wanting to work with. We actually have some short videos on the QCOS website with some tips on partnering with an RTO. So we will send you the link to those in the post-event email. Okay, so the Skilling Queenslanders for Work key target groups. These are key target groups only. Participants do not necessarily have to belong to these key target groups as long as they meet the specific program eligibility criteria, but they are here because these are the groups that the department is really looking at closely when they're considering all the applications. Recently released prisoners, young people aged 15 to 24 years, including those in and transition from out-of-home care, mature age job seekers aged 45 years and over, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, people with disability, migrants and refugees from culturally diverse backgrounds, women re-entering the workforce, veterans, ex-Australian Defence Force members and their families, underutilised workers including underemployed and those marginally attached to the labour force, retrenched and displaced workers as a result of COVID-19. And again, you can recruit outside of these key target groups if there are barriers to training and employment, for example, long-term unemployed working age job seekers. We've got a question here. Is there extra funding for RTOs to manage the smaller class numbers? That's probably a question best answered by one of our DESBIT team members. Does anyone from DESBIT want to have a go at answering that question? Thank you, Natalie, for the question. If not, we might need to take it on notice and get back to you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Not a problem. I could give you an answer, but I'm not sure DESBIT would agree with it. So I'm best getting them to answer that. All right, I'll keep going, but if someone from on the line from DESBIT would like to answer in the chat or to have the microphone for a minute and answer that, you're very welcome to. Okay, so as far as eligibility goes, SKU programs primarily target these job seekers. So the role of the state is to really fill the gap and primarily provide training and support services to people not eligible for Australian government employment services or assistance. The selection of participants for enrolment is at the discretion of the funded provider and subject to eligibility criteria and in consultation with DESBIT. So individual programs are subject to some variation in eligibility criteria, and DESBT will monitor the number of Australian government clients participating in SKU. So future funding for an organisation may be impacted if high percentage of Workforce Australia clients are recruited into projects. Now, just a note for anyone unfamiliar with the name Workforce Australia, this was previously known as Job Active. So I'll just repeat that point. DESBT will monitor the number of Australian government clients participating in Skilling Queenslanders for work, and future funding for an organisation may be impacted if high percentage of Workforce Australia clients are recruited into projects. There is no upper age limit for any of these programs. Residency status. They must be Australian citizens or permanent residents, New Zealand citizens permanently residing in Queensland, humanitarian entrants living in Queensland, temporary residents living in Queensland with the necessary visa and work permits on the pathway to permanent residency, automatic approval for bridging visa A, B, C, or E, and you can have a look more at the eligibility criteria on the DESBT website. So again, school students are ineligible for Certificate 3 guarantee. The majority of training and delivery assessment services under SKU are funded under the Certificate 3 guarantee. So school students are not going to be able to access that funding, which is a really critical aspect of the whole funding model. School students looking for a traineeship should explore school-based apprenticeships and traineeships, and school students are able to participate on Ready for Work projects in accordance with the program eligibility criteria. So nationally recognised training is not delivered as the program offers basic job preparation skills and assistance only. So I guess we're just repeating here the point that Queensland government would much rather see school age young people remaining at school if at all possible, and being encouraged to remain in school. So expected outcomes, really important to consider these when we're writing applications for any funding, is what does success really look like, and what will the funder be expecting to see out of the delivery of this program? So expected employment outcomes really vary between the programs, and employment can be full-time, so more than 25 hours per week, or part-time, which is less than 25 hours per week, in a permanent, temporary, or casual or self-employed capacity. What's really useful is on the DESBT website is actually a fact sheet for all of the different programs, which detail the expected KPIs and outcomes. So community work skill traineeships, Ready for Work and Skill Up have a KPI, so key performance indicator, of 55% employment outcomes. Get Set for Work has a KPI of 55% positive outcome. And again, in this context, positive outcome is considered a combined outcome of employment, further training, or a return to school. Youth Skills does not stipulate a percentage employment outcome. Outcomes for community foundation skills are identified by the applicant organisation. So success will be measured by pre and post foundation skills assessment for participants, benchmark against the ACSF and CSFW. So the community-based organisation is to use the preferred assessment tools for measuring outcomes. Participant outcomes are recorded by the organisation as they exit a project, and participant reports are submitted monthly to DESBT throughout the life of the project. And you saw some of the stories that were pulled out of that reporting. Organisations submit their final report 90 days after a project completes, and all outcomes, so completion of the qualification, the employment, the retained employment or increased hours for existing workers, further training, return to school, not in the labour force, unemployed, so whichever how you're going to identify each participant, that's recorded and reported, and it will be recorded on the departmental database as final outcomes. So that's within 90 days of the project being completed. All participants are externally surveyed by Queensland Government Statisticians Office 12 months after exiting a program, which is a really worthwhile endeavour because it shows us long term whether or not these programs have positive outcomes for the participants going through them. Neil, you've asked to have a link to the KPIs on the DESBT website. We can include that in the post-event email, a link to where those are. There's quite a few different resources you can find on the DESBT website, and we'll have a link to quite a few of them in the post-event email. Okay, so Skilling Queensland's work advisory committees review, prioritise and recommend applications for funding under the 7 community-based training programs, which are community work skills, work skill traineeships, get set for work, ready for work, youth skills, skill up and community foundation skills. So there's a comparative assessment of all eligible applications, which is undertaken against the published criteria in the program funding guidelines. The advisory committees also consider the regional unemployment rate, the need to focus on eligible identified disadvantaged groups, government and locally based priorities, the geographical spread of the proposed projects in the area, the qualifications that you're proposing to deliver, the potential for sustainable job outcomes, local industry and occupational profiles, identified local entry-level and labour needs, and previous performance and budget availability. So it really is having a look at the needs of that particular region and whether or not the projects proposed will suit. The committees have no involvement in the funding processes for the First Start program. This program is centrally managed. Now, the Skilling Queenslanders Work Advisory Committees, they were formerly known as Regional Priority Jobs Committees, were established to ensure the independent regional coordination of Skilling Queenslanders for work, and really to ensure that the program is being funded, that there's a community lens being placed on the applications put forward, and that those applications that are successful will meet the needs of the communities that they're being delivered in. Membership on those committees is comprised of representatives nominated by community, employer bodies, employee bodies, government and regional stakeholders. So really mixed group in every region, looking at those applications and giving recommendations. The online application process allows applicant organisations to attach supporting documentation. So if you've ever gone through this process before, there's quite a few different attachments you need for different aspects of the application. If there's anything missing in a mandatory field, an error message will come up. So you shouldn't be able to miss anything critical because you will get an error message. After submission, a confirmation email will be sent to your organisation, to the contact that submitted the application. And frequently asked questions are published on the Skilling Queenslanders for Work web pages. User-friendly online application processes, and it's a secure cloud-based environment. Now, information can be securely accessed at any time and from any device with internet access. There's previously been issues with different devices not working with the portal, but that is no more, and you should be able to access it at any time from any device. Now, applications can be worked on over time and in more than one sitting. And it's a pretty hefty application process, so I imagine that's probably the way you'll be doing it, is completing it over time. But once it's submitted, the application cannot be edited. So really ensuring that the groundwork is done to ensure that the application you're submitting is your final version and isn't something that will need to be edited afterwards, because that won't be possible. So there's 2 competitive funding rounds each financial year, with the first funding round for the financial year generally expending 70% of the budget, and then the remaining 30% is committed to the smaller second funding round. It's a transparent, contestable application process, and applications are assessed against published program assessment criteria. So the criteria is no secret, it's all really available for you to have a look at. Applications are assessed on a regional comparative basis, and the departmental knowledge and experience draws on current and past program performance. All of that's taken into consideration. So stage 1 is if an application meets capacity to manage, then it proceeds to stage 2. So it's really important that you're able to establish that your organisation has capacity to manage, because if you're not able to establish that, your application will not proceed to stage 2. Applications, then in stage 2, assessment of eligible applications against assessment criteria by DESVT and the locally based Skilling Queenslanders work advisory committees are considered. So there's two distinct stages to the applications. But again, that establishing your capacity to manage is really important for the rest of your application to actually be considered. So these projects so the funding round that's currently open on the 6th of February, these projects will commence in July and go onwards. Organisations need to nominate a commencement date in their application for funding, and it's expected that projects will commence from July 2023, and participant intakes can roll into or continue throughout the next financial year, so 24 to 25, depending on the start date. A standard contract period is 12 months, but long-term contracts may be considered. In the 23-24 year, the first funding round, as I said, opened on the 6th of February. It's open for 8 weeks and it will close at 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 30th of March. It's really important to note. 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 30th of March. So organisations are encouraged to submit prior to the closing date. As you can imagine, that web page gets pretty busy on the closing date. So definitely worth submitting early if you're at all able to. No late applications are accepted, so the online portal will actually shut down after that time. And April to May will be a really busy period for all the DESVT officers because they will be looking at all of the applications and going through their assessment and approval process. From June, that's when the Minister will start announcing results, June 2023. And as I mentioned, from July onwards, that's when the projects are commencing. So the projects must start in the financial year funded after the 1st of July 2023 and before the 30th of June 2024. Intakes can roll into the next financial year, but you must start in the financial year coming up. Okay, now this you'll see here on the bottom left hand of the screen. This is the email address that I have referenced a few times throughout this webinar. Note that one down. That's the email address to send quite a few of your different inquiries to. And importantly, that's the email address through which you seek feedback if you do submit an application and aren't successful. It's really important that if you don't receive funding, it's such a great learning opportunity to find out some more about what was lacking in your application so that you're able to refine it for next time. So really, really strongly encourage you seeking feedback after the process. Now, QCOS delivers quite a few webinars and face-to-face workshops to support you in the application process. So we're just about to kick off, and our first one's tomorrow, tender writing workshops across the state. So depending where you are in Queensland, it's likely that you're going to have a tender writing workshop for Skilling Queenslanders work coming to a township near you. We've got Cairns, Townsville, Rockhampton, Bundaberg, Toowoomba, and we've also got a few online. So I'm sure you'll find a date that suits you. We'd love to see you at the regional face-to-face workshops. It's our first time going back out to the regions with these workshops after a couple of years of hiding from COVID. So we're really excited to be getting out to the regions again and seeing you face-to-face. And at most of our workshops, there's also some DESVT regional team representatives. So a great opportunity to have a chat about your application, ask questions, etc., and just hear from other organisations similar to yours. Also considering what's possible under this great initiative. So we really encourage you to turn up to one of our tender writing workshops. There's quite a few practical resources and things available to you. All right, we're right on time with about 60 seconds left. I'd like to again thank the Department of Employment, Small Business and Training for the content that they provided and for working with us again. I might see your face, your name at one of our regional workshops or online webinars. We do have a poll that's popped up on the screen now. If you can let us know how useful, how satisfied you were with today's session, that helps us with refining it for next time. So thank you very much for spending an hour and a half with me this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you again online soon. Thank you.